Jenny wakes up in a hospital bed after a brutal car crash, her head throbbing as she stares at her surroundings without a clue where she is. The doctors break the news: severe retrograde amnesia. She doesn't remember her name, her past, or a single detail about her life. Then, a well-groomed, deeply concerned man named Reynolds walks in, claiming to be her husband. With no memories to rely on, Jenny has no choice but to trust him. Once discharged, he takes her to a secluded, picture-perfect home in the suburbs, where she meets her young daughter, Amy. Amy hugs her tightly, but inside, Jenny feels no emotional connection or maternal instinct whatsoever. Everything looks normal on the surface, but a lingering sense of danger hangs in the air. Jenny notices Reynolds constantly watching her, his affectionate demeanor slipping into a cold, unreadable stare whenever he thinks she isn't looking. Desperate for answers, Jenny starts digging through old drawers and storage boxes. Tucked deep inside a hidden compartment, she uncovers a yellowed newspaper clipping. The front page headline reads, "Serial killer terrorizes town in gruesome murder spree." Staring at the headline, panic settles deep in Jenny's chest. She realizes her memory loss isn't just from an accident, there's a terrifying secret being kept from her. Unable to trust anyone without proof, she decides to play along, secretly watching Reynolds' every move. The next morning, Reynolds leaves for work, giving Jenny the chance to explore the house. She realizes that despite its pristine exterior, the home feels unnaturally silent. One room at the back of the house remains locked tight. She peers through the glass, but heavy curtains block the view, driving her suspicions even higher. Later, Jenny talks to little Amy, asking subtle questions about their past. But the stories Amy shares don't align with the faint, scattered fragments in Jenny's mind. The history Reynolds built for this family is stacked on a foundation of lies. Reynolds returns early without warning, catching Jenny near his old belongings, though his voice remains smooth and pleasant. An undercurrent of control and tension radiates off him. He insists she rest, warning her that obsessing over the past will only hurt her recovery. Step by step, he isolates her, keeping her from leaving the house or speaking to neighbors. That evening, as Jenny washes her face in the bathroom, a sudden, violent memory flashes through her mind. A dark road, heavy rain, and the sheer terror of being hunted down. Before the picture clarifies, Reynolds knocks on the door, asking if she's all right in his calm, robotic tone. Jenny realizes she isn't just fighting her memory. She's trapped in a cage, where every move is monitored. The bathroom flash confirms Jenny's worst fears: Reynolds is hiding something dangerous. The next morning, as soon as he leaves, she searches his study and finds a ring of old keys hidden deep in his desk. Hands shaking, she unlocks the restricted room. Inside, it's dark and musty, filled with old case files, newspaper cutouts, and a photo album. She flips open the album and freezes. There are photos of Reynolds with another woman who looks just like her, but isn't her. The records inside reveal a nightmare. Reynolds is a calculated psychopath wanted by the police. Footsteps echo outside the door. Jenny quickly shoves a handful of photos and documents inside her jacket, relocking the room just in time. When Reynolds sits down for dinner, his demeanor shifts. He tracks her every movement, casually spinning fake stories about her past. But Jenny now knows the horrifying truth. The man sitting across from her isn't her husband. He's a monster wearing a mask. Fearing for her life and Amy's safety, Jenny plans her escape. But Reynolds is already one step ahead. He hands her a glass of milk with a chilling smile, telling her she looks exhausted and needs a long sleep. Every instinct inside her screams that the drink is spiked. Jenny stares at the glass of milk, her hands turning ice cold. Acting fast, she distracts Reynolds by pointing toward the window, pretending she heard a noise outside. The moment he turns his back, she pours the milk into a nearby potted plant and pretends to take a sip. Minutes later, she feigns unconsciousness on the sofa. Reynolds checks her face, satisfies himself that she's out cold, and steps away. The second he clears out, Jenny opens her eyes, pulling out the stolen documents to inspect them closer. The papers reveal a sickening truth. The real Reynolds and his wife were murdered long ago. The men living in this house stole their identity, home, and assets. Then comes the ultimate revelation and ID card proving Jenny isn't a housewife at all. She was an investigative reporter tracking this exact serial killer. She had been closing in on him before the crash wiped her memory, giving the killer the chance to trap her in his twisted game. Suddenly, her memory rushes back in a flood. She remembers the night of the crash, driving frantically through the pouring rain to escape him before losing control of the wheel. Knowing she's living under the same roof as a murderer, Jenny races to get Amy, but as she wraps her arms around the child to flee, heavy footsteps echo on the wooden floorboards. Jenny turns around to find the killer standing in the doorway, holding a long, polished blade. A sadistic grin spreads across his face as he whispers, "You've gotten a little too clever, haven't you, Jenny? Or should I say, Miss Reporter?" With his cover blown, the killer drops all pretenses. Blade in hand, he steps toward Jenny and Amy. Jenny shoves Amy behind her, grabbing a heavy wooden chair to defend them. The killer taunts her, stating the accident only bought her time. But her luck has officially run out. He lunges forward. Jenny uses the chair to block the slash, sending furniture crashing across the room. Fighting with pure survival instinct, she manages to shove him hard enough to knock him off balance. Grabbing Amy's hand, she bolts for the front door. Her escape is cut short. The killer recovers instantly, sprinting ahead to lock the main entrance and tossing the key into the dark. Trapped inside, Jenny pulls Amy upstairs, slamming into a bedroom and locking it shut. The killer slams against the wooden door, splintering the frame. Jenny drags a heavy wardrobe across the floor, jamming it against the door tube by precious seconds, scanning the room frantically. Her eyes land on a small window leading out to the roof. Just as the door gives way, Jenny helps Amy scale the window, lowering her onto the glass roof of the greenhouse below. The wardrobe collapses, and the killer bursts into the room, knife raised. Jenny grabs a heavy brass vase from a side table and swings it with everything she's got, catching him flush across the jaw. Stunned, the killer staggers back. Jenny leaps out the window, crashing onto the greenhouse structure, ignoring her cuts. She grabs Amy and runs toward the dense pine woods behind the property. Bleeding from the head, the killer pursues them into the forest. A tense game of cat and mouse unfolds in the pitch-black woods. Jenny and Amy crouch behind a massive tree trunk, holding their breath as the killer brushes past them, his boots crunching against dry leaves. Realizing they can't outrun him forever, Jenny hides Amy in a dense thicket and throws a heavy stone in the opposite direction. The killer takes the bait, chasing the noise. Using the distraction, Jenny doubles back to the property, heading straight for the garage to grab the car. Inside the dark garage, the air smells heavy of gasoline and old motor oil. Jenny creeps up to the black sedan, exhaling in relief as she finds the keys resting on the dashboard. She slips into the driver's seat and cranks the ignition. The engine sputters loudly and dies. Sweating profusely, she turns the key again. The engine roars to life, headlights cutting through the dark. But before she can shift into drive, a hammer shatters her driver's side window. The killer has returned, his face covered in blood, eyes wild with rage. Reaching through the shattered glass, he grabs Jenny by the throat, cutting off her airway, faced with suffocating. Jenny slams her foot onto the gas pedal while shifting hard into reverse. The car surges backward, smashing through the garage's rear wooden frame. The sudden jolt throws the killer off, slamming him hard against an exposed support beam. Jenny breaks free, sprinting back into the woods to retrieve Amy. She scoops the terrified child up and heads toward the highway, but through the trees. A beam of flashlight cuts through the dark. The killer is still coming, limping heavily but tracking their every step. Unable to make it to the open road with an exhausted child, Jenny ducked into a derelict, abandoned sawmill nearby. She tucks Amy behind a heavy wooden drum, whispering, "No matter what happens, stay completely quiet." Heavy metal boots kick open the rusted sawmill door. The killer steps into the dark, his voice echoing through the rafters, "You can't run from me." Jenny ... Your story ends tonight. Sawdust floats through the dim air of the abandoned mill. The killer steps forward, scraping a metal pipe against the floorboards to shatter Jenny's nerves. "Did you really think the crash was an accident, Jenny?" He sneers, stepping closer to her hiding spot. "You dug too deep back then, and you're making the exact same mistake tonight." Lying low behind a massive industrial woodcutting rig, Jenny spots an old electrical breaker box within arm's reach. The main power line is still live. As the killer rounds the wooden drum, blade raised, Jenny lunges for the breaker box and slams the main lever down. The entire factory roars to life. Massive circular blades spin up with a deafening screech, and conveyor belts begin to churn. Disoriented by the sudden chaos, the killer hesitates. Jenny hurls a heavy timber log onto the moving belt, sending it crashing straight into his injured leg. The killer loses his footing. Stumbling toward the spinning machinery, he lunges one last time, pinning Jenny down near the moving assembly, fighting for her life. Jenny grabs an iron rod off the floor and drives it directly into his chest. The killer recoils, falling back into the mechanical drive chain. The heavy gears drag him in, bringing a violent, final end to his reign of terror. The machinery grinds to a halt, leaving the mill in complete silence. Jenny staggers over to the wooden drum, pulling Amy into a tight embrace. "It's over, baby. We're safe." Moments later, red and blue police lights illuminate the perimeter. Holding Amy's hand, Jenny steps out at the dark sawmill, into the crisp morning air as the sun breaks over the pines.